Okay, in regards to my wife, Vivian, she might be more qualified on this particular topic of the immune system. She being a nurse practitioner and a nurse for many, many years. But as I said, don't ask me, so let's get into it. So I'll be looking at my notes. So pardon me if you see me looking down a little bit rather than straight into the camera. And it's more about what I'm saying more than how I appear. So yes, it's about our immune system. And I just want to clarify that. What is this immune system before? Maybe I'm sure you all know already, but let's just run it over. All right. So our immune system is comprised of a, I would say, an army, and I use that word army because it represents defense. It's a defense system in our bodies that God created, that it comprises of many different biological structures and also processes in which an organism, in this case would be in our body, it protects us against disease. Okay, to function properly, our immune system must detect a wide variety of agents known as pathogens, or we refer to those as viruses or bacteria or even parasitic worms. And it should be able to distinguish these things from our own body organic parts or our own body tissue. Now, let me just break this down a little bit now. What comprises, we're going to go into it a little bit more in more depth. What comprises the immune system? Well, based upon my research and the little science that I did uh, years ago, the main parts of our immune system is, and we know this, our white blood cells, antibodies, the lymphatic system, our spleen, our bone marrow, and our thymus. I'm going to explain this in a little bit. They they are, however, there are some other defense um, agents that our body has, which is still a part of the immune system, but it's not usually the first one that comes up, and that is our skin. Some people might not think about that, but if you think about it a little bit, you might say where, yes, the skin can be part of it. Yeah. Or refer to the skin more like it's a barrier, it's a waterproof barrier that it secretes oil with bacteria killing properties. Did you know that? Another organ is our lungs, and another one is our digestive tract, and even there are other fluids that our body produces, like skin oils, and even our saliva and our tears contain antibacterial enzymes that help to reduce the risk of infection. You'd never think about your tears, I would guess, that it's part of your immune system, having antibacterial um, components that keep your eyes, because of course your eyes are most of the time open, so they are exposed to the environment. And finally, um, even the flushing of our digestive tract or our bowels, along with our urinary tract, can be considered a part of our immune system. So let's look at these little parts quickly. Well, the first one I mentioned was the white blood cells, and we know what those are. I'm not giving a lecture or a talk specifically on these. I'm just trying to define and clarify. We know that our white blood cells are crucial. We learn about that, from we were young in school. Um, and they are made in our bone marrow, and they are part of our lymphatic system. And these white blood cells move through our blood and our tissue throughout the entire body, And what they do is they look for foreign invaders, what we refer to as microbes or bacteria, or viruses, all of that, parasites and fungi. And when they find them, what they do is they launch an attack on those foreign bodies. The other thing that I mentioned was the antibodies, and these help our body to fight microbes or these bacteria, viruses, etc., which I listed, and also the toxins that these microbes give off inside of our bodies when they're inside of our bodies. And how they work is that they they recognize substances called antigens on the surface of these little microbes or the chemicals that they produce. And these substances that they produce, it says, um, marks these microbes as toxin or they are foreign to our bodies. And so then the antibodies then mark them for destruction. And I think that's where now the white blood cells would come in and try to destroy those foreign bodies. Our lymphatic system, that one manages the fluid levels in our bodies and it reacts to bacteria. It deals with cancer cells. It deals with cell production that otherwise would result in disease or disorder. And they also absorb some of the fats in our diet from the intestines and things like that. I also mentioned the spleen, that's a part of it. And what does the spleen do? Well, the spleen is a blood filtering organ that removes microbes and destroys old, damaged red blood cells. It also makes fighting components for the immune system. Our bone marrow, that's another one inside of the bone. All these things make up our immune system, is part of this big system. Our bone marrow, we know that's that soft, spongy thing that's inside of the bone. And it's inside there that the red blood cells are made. And these red blood cells, of course, are responsible for carrying oxygen. And the white blood cells are also used to fight infection, and platelets, they are made there too. And then finally, I mentioned the thymus, and that is found right somewhere about here in your chest, right? Behind the bone right there. And the thymus, it filters and monitors your blood content, and it produces the white blood cells that are called T cells, or refer to that as T lymphocytes. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the different um, parts or sections of the immune system. And I now wanted to talk about how all of this comes together and how we are to treat it so that we can remain healthy because God has designed it that way. Now, God has designed the immune system to perform a remarkable job of defending us against disease. Okay? But sometimes the system fails. For some reason or other, a germ or bacteria invades successfully and we get sick. So the question that arises that we want to look at, or one of the questions, it's more than one, but one of the first questions we want to look at is there something that could have been done that would have prevented this? And is it possible to intervene in the process to boost that system? Another question is we want to look at is, are there certain vitamins or herbal preparations that can help? And the third question is, can we make lifestyle changes that assist in producing a super strong immune system? And some of you might know the answers already, which is a good thing because a lot of people are not aware or they are not knowledgeable on some of these issues. So, now the idea of boosting our immunity is it sounds great, but First and foremost, we must understand that our immune system is not just one single entity, as I mentioned earlier, but it's complex, all right, and it's all connected to form this this system that is throughout our entire body. For it to function well, there must be a balance. And there are still so many things that research hasn't found out. We don't know about it and how it interacts or interconnects with our immune system. So the effect of our diet, exercise, and our age, also psychological stress and other factors that relate to the immune response in our bodies are still being researched. So there's a lot more. Basically, what I'm saying is for us to find out, or science or researchers to find out about how the immune system works and the impact it has. But our first line of defense we must address. You see, what we do know is that a healthy immune system can defeat invading, refer to the word as pathogens or germs, bacteria, viruses, in giving us a good way of starting and building up a strong system. So the question now is, how do we strengthen our immune system? What are some of the things that we can do? Because we have to address that. I mean, the idea here is not just to give a lecture or talk on what is the immune system. The idea here that I'm trying to share is, what can we do? What are the steps we can make? Well, here are some things that I want us to look at. You see, every part of our body, including our immune system, benefits when we are protected from our environment, from the assaults of our environment, and the strengthening of our body by having a healthy living approach. And here are some things that we want to keep in mind. First thing, and this I'm pretty sure it does not apply to any one of us, is do not smoke. And you might say, well, okay, that doesn't affect me, but it's good to know so that we can share what we know with those who don't know. Smoking destroys or damages your immune system. And we're not going into the details of it, but that's something that anyone can research, and you'll see the facts on why smoking is so dangerous and damaging to your immune system. Another point is, eating a diet that is high in fruits and vegetables is another good, strong way of strengthening our immune system. Thirdly, exercise regularly. Fourth, maintain a healthy weight. Don't drink, no alcohol. Get enough sleep. When usually when I reach at this point, a lot of people will um, agree, sadly, but they will agree because they know that they are not getting enough sleep. And we know how sleep is essential. So these now are just a few of the things that I mentioned here, of the steps that we need to take to avoid infections. And finally, the one that is emphasized so much but is so often neglected is simply washing your hands frequently and cooking whatever you have presented to be cooked thoroughly. And we know that heat destroys, you know, pathogens, germs, bacteria, and stuff like that for the most part, and how long it is cooked for. Now, some things we eat raw, so we are aware of that. But it is critical, and I think wise, if those things that we're eating raw, excuse, that we make sure it's washed. Simple soap and water is a very effective way. Okay. Now, there are many products that are on the shelves over the counter. I think they refer to it as, right. And these things in the store shelves, they claim to boost or support our immunity, but the concept of boosting our immune system, some health advocates argue that it makes little sense scientifically. Because they argue that most of the numbers of cells in your body, as your immune cells or others, is not necessarily um, a good thing. Boosting these things, and so you ask yourself, why is boosting the number of cells? Because you would think that, well, if I increase this, for example, the white cells, then that's a good thing because I will have more defense. But the reason is, they says, because attempting to boost the cells of your immune system is especially complicated, seeing that there are so many different kinds of cells in your immune system that will respond to different microbes in various ways. So, which cells should you boost if that's the case? And what number? We don't know. Which cells should we boost? So far, research from scientists shows that up to now we don't know the answer to that question. What is known is that the body is continually generating immune cells, and our bodies produce many more leukocytes, that's the white blood cells, or a type of white blood cell, that it can possibly use. God designed it like that so that it has more than enough. And the extra cells remove themselves through a natural process of what we refer to as cell death. I think the word that they have for this natural dying off of the cells is ap- apoptosis, something like that. Forgive me if my pronunciation is off. So no one really knows how many cells or what the best mix of cells in our immune system is, or what we need to function at optimal level. However, there are some things that we can do, as I mentioned before, some of them, to strengthen our immune system. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit and tell you about a program, or I guess program would be uh, a proper word to use. That this Adventist doctor, his name is Dr. Neil Medley. I've read about two or three of his books, and I like his approach. So he has a program that he has coined, called it New Start, NEWSTART. I don't know if anyone here has heard of it. So he is the president of an institution. It's called WEIMAR, WEIMAR, and he's a practicing physician. So he has this program that proves to have great success. And this program, New Start, what it does, it promotes lifestyle changes based on 8 fundamental principles that are proven to help individuals achieve optimum health. And here they are. I'm pretty sure you might be familiar with this. One, nutrition, kind of touched that a little bit. Exercise, water, sunlight, being temperate, very important. Air, good air quality, rest, and finally, trust in divine power. So this program, it emphasizes that each portion, each section, it bears its part in enhancing complete, solid, good health. Well, let's just run through a few of these, or all of them for that matter. We won't be dwelling on it properly. I mean, long. The first one I mentioned was nutrition. Well, what am I talking about? Proper nutrition. As I mentioned before, and you might know, lots of fruits and vegetables. Research shows that those enhance our immunity because of the abundance of micronutrients that are in them. They're high in antioxidants like fruits, like berries, plums, prunes, you name it. You know, so many other fruits that is not often mentioned. For example, star apple. You hardly hear people talk about star apple. It might be a berry or a fruit, I'm not sure, but it's one of those fruits. Papaya, citrus fruits, things of that nature. Cruciferous vegetables that we refer to as broccoli. I don't know if you have Brussels sprouts, spinach, callaloo, kale, and even garlic. These are antiviral. They fight against um, diseases causing agents, and they're very, very good at doing that. I have proven that. Um, Another one is, which people don't mention much about it, is cayenne pepper, and as I've said before, garlic. Right? They are highly recommended, as well as low sugar intake. I can't overstress that. Natural sugar, like, okay, you you have an orange, you peel the orange, there's sugar in there, but that's fine. Your body will process that and react to it excellent and use all the nutrients. But when you started adding sugar, like to many of the processed foods that some folks eat, then it becomes a big problem. All right, the next one is I mentioned was exercise. Well, we all know that exercise is important, but it's not just to make your muscles strong or to you to be agile or you to be fit or create definition, whatever your goals might be. It actually boosts your immune system. In fact, in a few minutes, one sister, forgot her name last night, was mentioning that her blood pressure was high, and she went. I think she said she went walking or jogging. I don't remember.
On the treadmill,
On the
Ingrid.
treadmill.
On the
Thank you.
treadmill
All
for three
right.
minutes.
For 3 minutes, and then she checked back her blood pressure, right? And
And it was
the
normal, normal, normal.
right, the blood pressure dropped. No, I'm not surprised because I'm aware of these, but most people don't realize that. Many of them will run to the doctor and says, my blood pressure high, or they start to worry and they start to feel more comfortable in taking blood pressure medicine pills. Now, I'm not here to say don't do that, right? Because there are situations where you need to do that until you get back to where you ought to be. Then you slowly, with your doctor's recommendations, you slowly wean yourself off that. That is how I see it personally. Others might differ with that idea, but what I do know is that exercise, especially cardio, where you bring up your heart rate, and one good way of doing that is speed walking, jogging if you can. I know a lot of older folks have knee issues, and it's not recommended. When you're young, you can take that pounding, yes. The treadmill is a little softer and on the knees, but as you get older, I was advised that it's not the best, and I see the relevance and also the science in it, because as you get older, your joints start to um, I don't want to say break down, but they change, and that cushion that you used to have in your knees when you were young is not there anymore. And eventually, if it's abused long enough, you have bone against bone. You start developing arthritis in these joints. And for some folks, you have to have a joint replacement. And usually it's in the knee or it's in the hip. And I know quite a few people. And I think if we have a choice and we're given that choice, which indirectly we do, would you rather to have your natural hip joint or an artificial joint? You would say, I would rather have my natural joint. But when that joint is ruined, what are you going to do? You have to get a joint replacement. Anyway, so we try to exercise, yes, and we do exercise in moderation, because we don't want to start doing like marathons. Those are very, very hard, okay, on our joints. Okay, and it those kind of long, stressful exercise, they kind of suppress our immune system, and we want to choose exercises that are suitable for our moving, for our age, and for where we are located. And usually, if we can exercise outdoors, it's usually better. Um, but there are situations where that's not possible, so it's better to do it at least some indoor than outside. The other thing I want to look at is water. That's my time here. Okay. Um, we know how important it is to stay hydrated. We know that. And drink this. Some health advocates suggest that we drink water every 15 minutes which really continues to wash any bacterial virus into our stomach. You're like, whoa, why would I want to wash bacteria into my stomach? But guess what? Did you know that your stomach has a very, very strong acid that destroys these bacteria? God understands that. He was the one who designed that. And that's why a lot of times we eat certain things and we don't get sick. That does not give us the, the green light to go ahead and just eat anything because the acid in your stomach is strong. No, definitely not. All right. Gargling with salt water, it cuts down on the risk of catching a cold. We're talking about water here. Hot and cold contrast showers, 3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold, three times or the other way around, I'm not sure. But what they say is that doing that, the hot, the cold, I think is the way is use the when they say hot, it doesn't mean really hot water, like warm water first. But when you're rinsing off, from what I remember, finish your shower with cold water. It might be uh, quite uh, uh, looking for the right word. You might not feel like doing it, but once you start to do it, after a while, your body get used to it, and you'll feel very, very refreshed and invigorated. And actually, in fact, it does help your health. You'll feel the difference. I know that from personal experience. And I will say before, washing your hands frequently with soap and water, just soap and water, to prevent the spread of germs is crucial too. So, all right, we looked at. I remember we're looking at this program that this gentleman, Doctor Neil Medley, very renowned, very well respected, knowledgeable, and physician. I never met him personally, but as I said, I read his books and I endorse him greatly. Uh, so we did looked at nutrition, exercise, water. Let's look at another one, sunlight. And I'm mentioning these things because we're in the I don't know if it's the middle or we're in this pandemic, and we hear all these um, things that are told us what we need to do, and but I went to my doctor for a checkup about 2 3 months ago, and I said to the doctor, my doctor, I said, I believe that our best defense in any kind of sickness is a strong immune system. I was surprised, but he agreed with me 100%. So I say that because we need to look at these things, because it's important that we understand that we have the tools, we have the resources. We just need to change some of our quote unquote bad habits which we have developed or what we have encouraged over time. And even sometimes we're born with bad genes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because you were born that way that thing is what's gonna take you out. That's not true. That's not true at all. You can have the bad genes, but you can do something to prevent it from being the thing that will hurt you. You know. All right. So I went off track a little bit, but let's look at the other one. Sunlight. Well, we know that sunlight kills germs. Fact. Sunlight is, they say, antimicrobial, right? And there's evidence that it can kill the flu virus, included COVID 19. They talk about sunlight and vitamin D. I believe it. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I believe that. Your vitamin C, your sunshine, your exercise, and I forgot to mention about water. Let me just back up here a little bit. I believe in drinking water in the morning and lemon water. Now, some people can't handle that, but that's another issue. But I believe everyone can drink water. How do you get in that required amount of water that your body needs to stay hydrated? Well, my brother, who is a medical doctor, was at my home sometime earlier this year, and he mentioned to me, he says, you know, Len, if you drink, if you force, because you're not gonna feel thirsty in the morning, but in the morning when you get up, if you can drink, 4 to 6 glasses of water, it's gonna be a little stretch when you start to do it. Within half an hour or so, maybe also an hour, you will have a BM. You will want to use the bathroom, which is a good thing because you start to flush and eliminate. You will also have hydrated your body. So when you leave for that day, whether you leave, meaning whenever you start to do what you do, whether you go to work or at home or you leave your house to do, your body will have started the day well hydrated. So even if throughout the day you're not getting the water that you need, the adequate amount, your body's already hydrated. Now some people don't want to do that because they're concerned, or they have the issue with, well, I need to go to the bathroom more often. True, but if you get up early enough and drink that, you will use the bathroom and flush out your not just your kidneys, but your bladder and and your digestive system. That water that you're pumping into your body, pumping mean drinking, that excessive water, your body after a while get accustomed to it, and after a while it just becomes a natural thing for you that you can handle drinking that water. Now again, it takes time, and after a while you'll see how beneficial it is for you. The outside, I'm going back a little bit to sunshine now. Vitamin D is necessary for our bodies. That's a very critical and important vitamin. Vitamin D. Now we learned that we get vitamin D from the sun, which is true, and our body makes that. But you don't need to be in the sun for hours for you to have that, and I think that's a no-brainer for most Caribbean folks because you're outside a lot. You're not locked up inside all day in this air-conditioned environment, and your body works with that well. Excuse me. Now, spending time outside in nature, walking or gardening, when you're doing your exercise, depends on what time of the day. Usually, it's not best to go outside like at midday when the sun is at its highest, between I think 11 or 12 to about 2, 3 o'clock. This is usually when the sun is in its highest in terms of the heat and the ultraviolet exposure. Now, that is something that we ought to be careful of because the world is changing. Years ago, this UV, which is short for ultraviolet, the damaging effects of it was very, very not much recognized. But we have found out over time that the ultraviolet rays that's given out from the suns, which is they are damaging to your skin. They are more prominent because the ozone layer is wearing away in the atmosphere. So more of these harmful rays are coming in and affecting us. So we need to be careful of that. Um, If you are outside a lot, I would strongly suggest get a good pair of sunglasses. Not just that you'll look cool, but more importantly, you need it to protect your eyes. Those sunglasses will cut back on the ultraviolet rays, which in fact um, increases your chances of having cataract, especially if you live in a tropical environment. So that's just as a side note. Okay, I just mentioned that. But yes, the other one is temperance. There's not much to really say about that. The Bible speaks a lot about it, and in every area, but also with the devices that we use, we have to be mindful of that, like the cell phones, how often, or tablets, the computers, the television. Not only do they um, affect our bodies negatively, but it robs us of sleep, especially if you're on your computer all day and at night, and that's the last thing you're looking at or using before you go to bed. And not only that, too, some folks sleep with that very close to their head or their body, not recognizing that these electronic gadgets, they they emit waves. Don probably can tell me a little bit, tell us more about that. That studies are showing that can be harmful over time. Um, of course, we don't smoke and we don't drink, and we must understand that even if something is healthy or good, too much of it is not good. You know, so we must be temperate in all things, right? Set yourself a goal and strive to keep that goal, or that um, what's the right word? That resolution. I don't believe in resolution personally, but it works for some people. Stick with it, carry it through. If you decide that, okay, this is what I'm going to do, set goals that are attainable. Don't set them so far fetched that you don't reach them and then you give up. And then finally, you just right back to where you are. And then you says, well, they don't work. They don't work because you probably overdid it. You set a goal that is not attainable on a short term basis, but setting smaller goals and moving up along the ladder, that's has proven to be more effective in attaining your goals, right? Okay. God has says, do not fear, I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you, he says. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That's Isaiah 41, verse 10. And I mention it here because we need that help, you know, and God says He's there to help us in anything and in everything that we choose to do that is in accordance to His will. Next one is air. Fresh air, we know that's, I believe, something we all can agree to is necessary, and it's invigorating. It's it's it promotes um, uh, oxygen getting inside of our bodies, where the red blood cells can transport that to every living cell in your body, which we need. Which we need. Um, it is reported that fresh air can kill some of these flu viruses and harmful germs. Um, if we have the opportunity to live in an environment where there's not a smog and smoke and stuff like that, I would suggest in the morning, get up, go outside when that air is usually fresh and there's not a lot of traffic, or there's none depending on where you are, and inhale and exhale, 5, 6, 7 times. You take a deep breath and you hold in that fresh air into your lungs for a few seconds, and then you release it and you repeat that. I encouraged my 93-year-old mom to do it, and some months ago she says, Lenny, I'm doing it and I feel different, I feel good. So that's take it from a 93-year-old person who still is very active. Now, germs circulate inside the buildings. We know that. And so from day to day, it's necessary for us to get out of the buildings if we work in offices and stuff like that. Get into the open air, go for a walk, open the windows, breathe deeply, let that air come in. Rest. So we just kind of slash sleep. That's very, very critical. Getting enough sleep helps to boost our immune system. It enhances the T cells in our bodies, and these T cells adhere to and they destroy the cells that are infected by the pathogens and the viruses. Sleep renews and heals worn down body systems. Sleep aid in natural melatonin production, enhances our immune response. It says, as recommended, it says 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Studies show that the body benefits tremendously, extremely, when we get that amount of hours. Now, I know for some folks, there are some issues, so rest, that amount of straight, solid sleep is probably hard to start out with, but my suggestion would be this is your health. This is the time that the body repairs itself. This is the time when it builds up. This is the time when, if you're younger, it grows more than when you're very active. Your body has, and I learned some of this not so long ago, a few, well, a year or two ago, that what is called brain plaque builds up inside your brain. And if you do not get enough sleep, that thing stays there. When you're sleeping, the body removes that plaque. It's a waxy, sticky type of substance. But of course, it's in very small, in minute amounts. But if you're not getting enough sleep, your body is not able to work on that to create a sharp um, um, brain that is very alert and very receptive in learning new things. Basically, what you're doing is just stifling your brain. And so research has shown too now that people who don't get enough sleep, there is a connection between those folks with Alzheimer's or dementia. And none of us want that, I'm sure. That's the dreaded disease, Alzheimer's. But I'm not saying that that's what causes it. What I'm saying is that getting enough sleep gives your body the opportunity and the chance to repair itself, including the brain. That's what I'm saying. We can be thankful that our dear Lord gave us a day of rest also from the beginning, and He has given us an example that we can follow for our physical, spiritual, and our mental health today. Now, finally, I mentioned trust in divine power. In other words, trust in God. We know that. Resting our faith in God not only gives us spiritual and mental peace, but science is now studying its effect on physical healing and disease in the lowering of cortisol levels and the increase of white blood cells. Imagine that. Trust that the Lord is giving us resources we need. That's one suggestion, which I believe is very, 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 very true. Not only for our own use, but also to share with and bless others. Trust God for that. The Bible says, and the peace of God which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. That's Philippians 4, verse 7. And it is true. Great peace have they who what? The Bible says, trust thy Lord. Now that's the old covenant. That's um something that I won't get into. But the idea is, are we trusting God? Do you have peace? Do you trust God enough to know that, as we were talking a little bit about it last night? Are we trusting God enough to know that when we speak to Him, when we pray to Him, when we talk to Him, when we share what we're experiencing, we are the ones that benefit? Our prayers and our requests doesn't do anything for God to make God better. God is happy and He's pleased because He's our Father. And when we come to Him for help, He loves that. But the benefit is for us. When, and it's more than just a psychological thing, but the psychology of it, I think, emphasizing, I think, is that when you share some of these burdens, some of these things that stress us out, don't you realize that you feel a little better? And that's why so often sometimes when we talk to someone, it helps to calm us down. But who's better to talk to than our Heavenly Father? Trust in God. He's the one who created us. He knows. God has designed our immune system to be a protection mechanism. This designed to defend us against these microbes and toxins and viruses. And if the immune system is severely weakened or worse, shut down within a few hours, guess what? Our bodies will automatically be invaded by a number of various parasites, bacteria, and microbes. You see how God is awesome? This system have to be working 24/7. Within a few minutes, you, if your immune system starts to malfunction, bacteria and disease start to creep in. And that I know to be true. If our immune system is working effectively and efficiently, these things are unable to overcome our bodies. Without our immune system, our bodies would be susceptible to harmful germs. Recently, I looked at the research that shows that there's a strong case to be made for the seemingly useless organ that we refer to as the appendix. But others like myself know that God doesn't create anything that is useless. What it is that scientists had no idea why is that little thing at the end of part of our colon, that little finger-like thing that hangs out, which is called the appendix. What purpose does it serve? And of course, these evolutionists would argue that, well, it's part of our system that has been changing over millions of years. But what I found out, or what I discovered, was that the appendix provides a safe haven, a safe place for good intestinal bacteria to hang out or to, 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 to reside in our gut system. And that keeps away many of the infections that we could have experienced. I know that to be true. Another study that I looked at shows, and this one I believe to be very true, it shows a relationship between people who eat a lot of processed food. The percentage of appendicitis, I think that's the right word, is much higher in those folks who eat a lot of processed food. But people who eat a lot of natural, unprocessed foods, they have a way less percentage of having appendix and inflamed or appendicitis. And that to me is good news. And I believe that. And I tell you why. When I was younger, I love processed food. It was bun and cheese and soda. That's what I had for lunch. That's what I patty and soda. While the school, I went to St. Mary's High in Highgate. The school offered cook lunch, but and it wasn't that expensive. But my favorite was the processed stuff. But unfortunately, and I don't think this is coincidence, at 13, 14, I had a ruptured appendix. And I've often wondered, well, I survived it and I was giving a little testimony to Don. I think someone else was listening, but that's okay. And I was wondering, why was I so unfortunate? Well, the doctor told me when I went to the doctor, the first doctor, he said to me, well, what did you eat for lunch? And I said, I had patty and sodas. And he said, well, um, young man, you like patties, but patties don't like you. And so his diagnosis was I had colitis indigestion. So my mom and I went back home, excruciating pain for the next 2 days. And that wasn't good because now my mom realized that my stool was now black, which is a bad sign. If you have a stool, your stool that is coming out as is black, could be possibly you're bleeding internally or something else. My wife can talk more about that if anyone has any question on that. Anyway, went to see another doctor. He says to my mom, you got to take him to the hospital in Spanish Town. I was living in Guys right away because he has ruptured appendix and I believe gangrene is already setting in. And that's when inside you start to rot. So by God's mercy, I'm here to make a long story short. But that thing has been an issue for me. Why me? Because basically I eat what my mom provided for the rest of my siblings. Why me? But then when I read this study years ago, I mean many, 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 many years after, and saw what the study suggested, it made sense to me because when you eat a lot of natural food, it's high in fiber, so the food that you eat it moves along. The digestive system pushes it along. Peristalsis, that wave-like movement that the food goes through as we go along, right out from your mouth right down to your anus. Food doesn't stay up inside of your body long, which is a good thing because when food sits there, it ferments and there's bacteria, and then you have the good bacteria and you have the bad bacteria. That's another discussion for another day. But that food is meant not to be stuck in there. It needs to be moving along. And by the way, water, a lot of fluids, especially water, including coconut water, if you can get that, sure, helps to move that along and keeps the food um, where it should be. And that's why they say ideally you should have a BM at least one every day. And if you're doing it 3 times a day, you're in a good place. 2 times, that's great. No time, look what you're eating. Check up on the amount of fluids you're drinking. And I don't mean sweet juice, I mean like especially water. Good fluids, right? And you'll see that you did not drink enough. Because even if you're not sweating, right, your body's giving off heat, it's giving off water, moisture in the environment, right? And your body needs it. It needs it for clarity. It needs for the chemistry, the chemical reactions that take place in your body. Water is essential, man. It's the thing that gives life. Um, and I say it that way not to discredit that God is the one who gives us life, but if you can't live without water for long. You cannot eat for 3, even up to a month, maybe, and you still function. But I forget how long it says. I mean, if you go for a week without water, you're basically on your dying, your last leg, because by that stage your brain is not functioning, your organs probably start to go into failure. You can research that more, but anyway, That thing needs to move on. But when you eat that processed food, biscuit, patty, bun, cheese, bread, that type of thing, all the baked products and dumpling, not saying of themselves they're all bad, but when your diet is around that mostly, that food is not high in fiber. And so it stays longer. So what the studies found that there were little pellets in the appendix, and those little pellets of the food that got stuck there is from processed food. The high fiber food kept moving along. The little um, pellets again got stuck in there, created infection, led to appendicitis, and in some cases, you have an erupted appendix, which is very, very serious. So, in closing, I'll just say that our immune system is a system designed by God that is beyond um, any animal to create that within of themselves. Science today, the evolution talks about how many years and thousands of years and millions of years that things are evolving. Rubbish. When you look at how fearfully and wonderfully your eye is made, you realize that there must be a design, a creator, to put all of this chemistry and all of these systems in our bodies to work in a certain way for us to enjoy optimal health. It can't be by chance. It's impossible, if you ask me. And so we thank God for creating humans in His image because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Thank you for your time. I think I've gone over, and thank you for your patience.
Amen. That was powerful. Who said I never needed notes? I took 4 pages of notes.
Wow.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, and I it was valuable information because a lot of things relate to me, especially the last part, the appendix, and I lost mine, and what you taught me just now also tells me that it could be, Lenny, that I now have